History is written by the victors, but the voices of the vanquished often tell a much darker tale. Imagine being part of an army that thought it was invincible, believing you were the elite of the world. But then, you wake up in the dead of night to the sound of shattering glass and the smell of sulfur, only to find yourself surrounded by enemies whose homes your people burned to the ground. Today's story isn't about a brave general or a famous spy. It is the harrowing account of a German female soldier captured by the Soviet Red Army, a journey into a living nightmare that history books often choose to ignore. Welcome to Untold, and today we are pulling back the curtain on the brutal reality of the Eastern Front. Stay with us until the very end, because the fate that awaited these women was a type of suffering that defies human imagination. It was early 1945, and the walls of the Third Reich were crumbling under the weight of the Soviet steamroller. Elsa, a young radio operator for the Wehrmacht, sat in a reinforced bunker, clutching her headset. She had been told that her Aryanness made her superior, that her army would never let her fall. But that illusion shattered when a Soviet T-34 tank smashed through the bunker's entrance. Through the thick dust and smoke, she saw faces distorted by years of rage, men who had lost everything to the German invasion. Elsa tried to reach for her pistol, but a heavy Soviet boot crushed her hand into the frozen dirt. She was dragged out by her hair, her pride stripped away in seconds, and thrown into a windowless cell where the very air felt like ice. This was the beginning of Elsa's descent into a hell where death was the only mercy left. For the next several days, Elsa existed in a void of darkness and terror. She was shackled to a rusted iron chair in a basement where the walls bled moisture. The interrogation wasn't just about information, it was about breaking her soul. The Soviet officers, men who had seen their own families slaughtered by the Nazis, looked at her not as a woman, but as a symbol of the evil they sought to destroy. They subjected her to the ice bath, submerging her in freezing water until her lungs felt like they were exploding, only to drag her out and sear her skin with white-hot iron to bring her back to consciousness. They fed her nothing but salted, dirty water and scraps of moldy bread thrown onto the floor, forcing her to eat like an animal while they watched in silence. Every time her eyes drifted shut from exhaustion, she was jolted awake by high-pressure hoses or the deafening roar of propaganda speakers. The psychological torture was perhaps even more devastating than the physical pain. Elsa was forced to stare at photographs of the atrocities committed by her own army, the mass graves and the scorched villages. Day after day, she was told that Berlin had fallen, that her family was dead, and that the world had forgotten she ever existed. She was kept in a standing coffin, a cage so narrow she could neither sit nor stand fully, for days on end. The sensory deprivation and the constant threat of violence turned her into a walking ghost. Her screams had long since faded into a raspy whisper, and her eyes, once bright with the arrogance of the Reich, were now hollow pits of despair. Her captors wanted her to feel every ounce of the agony that their own people had endured during the long years of the occupation. After months of this systematic dehumanization, when Elsa was nothing more than a broken shell, she was loaded onto a cattle car destined for the Siberian gulags. There, in the depths of the frozen wilderness, she spent her final days working in the forced labor camps, her body eventually giving out under the weight of exhaustion and disease. When her remains were finally cleared away, she was unrecognizable, just another nameless casualty of a war that showed no mercy to the defeated. Elsa's story is a chilling reminder that when hatred and the thirst for vengeance take over, the rules of war vanish and the abyss swallows everyone in its path. Was this a fair price for the crimes of her nation, or does war turn even the victims into monsters? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For more untold and gritty stories from history, make sure to subscribe to Aviation Tales. We'll see you in the next one.